Hello, everyone. I'm Bra Mithra. It's time for Buy or Fry for the January shops, which were Seed Pattern Survivor Ingama and Frozen Survivor Cyclamen, which was the beta. So those were the two shop updates with gameplay. So we'll talk about those two. I want to start first quickly with the Seed Pattern Survivor Ingama shop listing. I just want to praise this really quickly. Thank you very much for Team Death for turning the seed pattern forward in the shop listing. That's great. I know I've mentioned before that sometimes with the shop listings, the photos for the stuff can be turned around, like the cards can all be turned around, or things are blurred so you can't read them. With Ingama specifically, thank you for turning the seed pattern forward so you can read the seed pattern and see that it requires Berserker. The fighting art doesn't say specifically fighting art, which we'll talk about, but I think that's just really, really good. I'm glad that they did that. It allows you to purchase Ingama being with, the most valuable piece of information to make the most informed decision you possibly could for if you were to purchase Ingama. So because of that, I'm glad. I hope in the future that is always going to be the case. I know that the shops mention when an expansion is needed, and IRs always say what monster you'll need, but the nuance here, thank you for turning that forward. I'm just really glad that people are able to make the most informed purchase decision, wherein without that, you'd be kind of going in and maybe you'd be swiped by the fact that, oh man, this seed pattern requires the use, or not requires, but is easy to make with regular survivors and difficult to make with ARC survivors. Almost not impossible, but we're going to talk about that. So just thank you for that. I felt it was very important to say, and I hope that continues going forward. As I said, I'm all for, you don't need to show everything. I get that. But at least when something is vital, like knowing that Berserker is going to be needed, that is shown so people can make a very informed decision. Thank you very much, Team Death, for doing that. So let's start with the beta. As it is January, we will get the Frozen Survivor beta. This is now the fourth one. All four were up for sale. I think they still currently are. This is another insulated, which insulated is the mechanic where if you're wearing... It's not if you're wearing. If you have 6 or more gear cards that grant armor points, meaning one could be a shield, stuff like that. So you don't need to be wearing it. It's just if you have 6 or more, which is not very easy to do right out of the gate, as these survivors look like they're starting survivors. But Insulated is a very cool survivor status, survivor state, I think is what's been referred to as. I really like Insulated. I've said that now for all 4 of these releases. This one's much the same. This is the Furnace Lantern. Whenever you move on the hunt board, so that means this person specifically, I think, whoever has the Furnace Lantern. What makes me think that is there's also another gear that says like you cannot be ambushed, which means specifically if you were to get an effect that would ambush the party, it needs that includes you, so that will cover for everybody because ambush is an effect that's for everybody. Whereas the other one for Overwhelming Darkness means where it says you ignored Overwhelming Darkness, it means just you, not everybody. So much like how this says when you move on the hunt board, I think that means just that person. I forget what the Overwhelming Darkness one is. It's a Smog Singer one, Harpy Harp, I think. I forget which one it is off the top of my head, but that's the example. I think it works like that, whereas the other one was like, I forget what the other one is where you can't, it was a white box. It was a ringtail fox or something, I think it was, or something like that, where it just says you cannot be ambushed. That means the entire party can't be ambushed. Because ambush is an effect that affects everyone, you negate it, and therefore it's all 4 negated. or for all 4, it is negated, or 5 in the instance of a scout. So that's the top one. You gain 1 survival, or 1 survival if you are insulated. Again, being insulated is not super easy, especially with this being a lantern. This is a great end game people of the lantern thing where you're forced to take lanterns into your grid all the time. But insulated requiring you to have 6 or more gear cards, and now you're giving up 1 of them to being this lantern, restricts you down a lot, and 1 to probably being a weapon, but you can fist and tooth, or you can use the shield. But either way, that's what it does. And then it has the affinity. So this is up red. The affinity bonus is on arrival, gain +2 strength tokens if the gear this points to is heavy armor. So that needs to be heavy armor. That means it can't just be a heavy weapon. Can't be like a heavy shield. Needs to be heavy and then have the keyword armor. So it can't. There are things that are heavy that are items that you do wear, but they're not armor, even though they provide gear. So I can't remember if rolling armor is heavy. I don't think it is, but that's an example of something that isn't armor, but is an item and does grant it. But it wouldn't work for this because it's not armor. But it is an accessory, so you still wear it. So very neat, very cool. I think this is neat. The cost is very cheap. Just a Endeavor and a Broken Lantern. The Broken Lanterns, they have kind of like a higher priority on them now because if you're using scouts, lots of seed patterns require specifically Broken Lanterns. This would also require specifically a Broken Lantern, can't be scrap. So neat. I'm glad it's kind of cheap, more expensive if you're using scouts, but I don't think you're going to get insulated super quickly. Even in core, if you just went with rawhide, you'd still need to get to like leather shield if you were just in core. So you'd need to have some other way of getting that 6th card. So an accessory, I guess you could wear a lion accessory, lion mask or whatever, but some kind of mask, some accessory would also do the trick to get you insulated quickly. But yeah, I still like insulated. Now that we have all 4, I'm hoping we see this as a box set for all the 4 of the survivors here. But yeah, good. This is the beta for this month. It's kind of exactly what I expected, keeping on brand for the insulated starting survivors, frozen survivors. All right, next, let's get to the Feral Zimbato, which is the seed pattern survivor Ingama. So let's talk about expectations for seed pattern gear. I'm going to save that. Let's talk about what it is, and I'll talk about some things that other seed pattern survivors have done that this one doesn't do. So Feral Zimbato, this is the seed. You can make 1 of them. It's not restricted by anything, so this is a universal seed, which is great if it's going to be a white box. Seed survivor white boxes should all be universal. They shouldn't be gated behind something else, so that's a plus. You can see here the cost is the Zimbato itself, so you'll need to make a Zimbato, which is fine. 2 Broken Lanterns, this is where I talked about with the beta. Broken Lanterns do have value. You might not want to just spend them on that lantern from the beta. And then 1 Fresh Acanthus. So the cost is kind of cheap here, but the cost of this recipe-wise, the actual things that you're losing to make it, not the real cost here. So this is a survivor with Berserker, that is the fighting art Berserker currently, devises a way to reinforce their frail weaponry. So this requires you to have Berserker. Apply principles of sculpture, so that's the innovation, to fashion metal lattice out of broken lanterns, encase Zimbato in metal lattice, and buff its many sharp edges with acanthus oil. Now, this is great that it doesn't bold Zimbato there, because that would imply you would need a second Zimbato, because you're spending the one and losing it to make this. So it's great that they didn't bold that Zimbato there. It's really great. Very cool. Nice touch. Nice notice. So, let's talk about Berserker. If you're using Arc Survivors, you can get this from See the Truth. You can try to force Berserker. Arc Survivors have a really hard time getting specific fighting arts or just getting fighting arts in general. You mostly gain one at random, but this, I'm not even talking about Vaultless. Vaultless is a whole nother thing, but I'm talking about just getting Berserker, getting someone with Berserker. The only way that's going to happen with Arc Survivor is probably by reaching See the Truth and then forcing your Vaultless through it. Even with See the Truth, it's hard to get that result because it's each one of the grave principles affects the roll. You can have both of the grave principles, which would be Great Cannibalize and Graves. Then you have the highest chance from See the Truth to get Berserker. But even then, when you do get it, it's still like a 60% chance, because then it goes, so it's 1 to 2, and then 1 to 4 if you have Graves, and then it's 5. Well, the 5, 6 is always going to be the Berserker. Then with 3, 4, it becomes 3, 4, 5, 6 with Graves, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 if you have Cannibalize. Then the 7, 8 was also tossed in there to get Berserker. So it's easier if you have both. If you only have one principle, which you probably will by the time you're getting the seed pattern anyway, it's probably going to be a 40% chance. You can get up to a 60% chance. But then you still have the Vaultless on top of that. Going to be difficult. You usually don't want a Vaultless for Berserker, but I guess here's the one thing I will say about it being Berserker. If you're using Black Knight, the Piercer Claws also need Berserker, so it's nice that it's using the same fighting arts, so you do get value over if you do, like, Sculpture it, right? Or not Sculpture it, if you do Vaultless for it. It's great that also you'll benefit, then you'll have someone ready for Piercing Claws, so it's great that sense of it's the fact that it's a repeated fighting art, so you're going to gain double benefit. But still, again, that's the thing which I'm so happy that they face the card forward for the shop listing, so you'll be able to see that this requires Berserkers, so you'll want to know, because if you're an Arc Survivor only player, that really devalues this arc, because it's going to be in your seed deck forever, and it's going to be really hard to get with arcs. But let's talk about the gear itself now. And even Sculptures. Sculptures, you're probably not going to take that very early. So it's going to be even after you have Sculpture. But let's talk about the gear itself now. The Feral Zimbato, what you make here. It's a 1 speed, 6+ accuracy, 6 strength. It's a seed, weapon, melee, grand, 2-handed, bone, metal, slow, deadly 2, barbed 4. This has devastating 1 while you are frenzied. That's a lot of stuff. That's just a bunch of stuff put on this to make this good. Slow, that's what regular Zimbato is. The deadly is what regular Zimbato is. This is deadly 2. And then it just gets barbed 4. Deadly and barbed kind of clash. But I guess this is good. So if you look at this in the sense of if there's no crit location, well, you're gonna probably make a crit build with this, right? Because it has deadly 2. You probably have like someone with 1 luck or something, and you want to get more luck some other way in luck charm. Either way, but deadly 2 is great, so you want to be going with a luck build. Luck builds bypass strength, because when you crit, you don't care about whether or not you hit the strength. In most cases, there's one monster that still does, but in most cases, so deadly and barbed kind of clash there, because if you're going to be critting anyway, you don't care about your strength. This is nice. The barbed is nice because if there is no crit location and then you roll a perfect hit, at least maybe you got some strength there, so you don't have to rely just on crits. But if you're not going to be making a crit build with this, I don't know why you would be bringing this. Mostly because you're going to have to frenzy yourself. And then it says, when you critically wound with this, suffer the frenzy brain trauma, limit once per round. So that's another reason why you're going to be wanting to have a crit build, so you can frenzy. Now, the thing here with frenzy's interesting because you lose your weapon proficiency, and this is a grand weapon. So when you do crit, like, it's nice you're going to have devastating while you're frenzied. But normally with grand weapons, having access to your weapon proficiency is good. Frenzy is also just really bad for Arc survivors because you can't make observations and it lasts the entirety of the showdown phase. So, you could just lose access to a lot of stuff with knowledges, can't make observations, weapon proficiency you lose. So being Frenzy isn't great. At least this repeatedly Frenzy you, and it's when you crit. So it kind of brings in the question the Barb 4 again. Sure, Barb 4 is nice, but you really want to be doing a luck build with this. You want to stack as much luck as you can, so you're critically wounding as much as you can, so you Frenzy yourself over and over, and then you'll be gaining speed and strength anyway from the Frenzy, and ignoring slow. And then it has Devastating 1. So you're not even, with Devastating 1, when you are critting, you're not going to be crit farming because you're going to be blowing this, you're going to be killing the monster faster with the Devastating 1. I think this weapon is a really good weapon. The barrier to entry will vary depending on if you're using Arc Survivors, and even when you get Sculpture and what builds you have available to you when you have this, and even if you want to use Zambado. The other thing with, going forward, Weapon Crafter might not be something you go for. Weapon Crafter, if you're making Weapon Crafter now, I find myself now mostly not even going for Zambado and counterweighted axe. So Weapon Crafter, that's where the barb comes from. The other Weapon Crafter has weapons that have barbed, so. But sometimes you can just skip outright Weapon Crafter, or if you're making Weapon Crafter, you're making it so you can get Broken Lanterns and stuff, or scrap. So it's in a weird place, but it's interesting. I think the weapon itself is strong. I think the barrier to entry here is going to be very niche. I think that makes the weapon niche, but I think that's fine. But now I want to talk quickly about what I alluded towards, which was the expectations from a seed pattern white box. The first seed pattern white box had Novel Sword, which was Willow, and the second one had a new whip. And the whip is great, and the base game doesn't really have very many whips. And it's great to get a whip because in the base game, when you're not using People of the Lantern, you can't oxidize. So then the best whip in the game was gone because of the oxidized whip was gone. So those two seed boxes, one had a Novel Sword proficiency, and the other one had a desperate need. This is just a better Zambado, and we already have so many Zambado. This is now the fourth Zambado in the game. The original Zambado, then you have the Dung Beetle Knight Zambado, and then you have the Impermanism Zambado, and now you have Feral Zambado. I wouldn't doubt if we get more Zambados. It's just interesting. I would prefer the seed pattern white boxes do something more like universally good for the game, right? Because if you're using DBK, you might not even make this because you could just make the other Zambado. Or if you're using Impermanence, it just might not make this again because this one isn't frail, but it would be in frail with him. But you wouldn't want to break this. So, interesting. I think this would have been, maybe if this would have been a grand novel specialization for this, would have been better. Seed pattern boxes, we don't get them very often. Seem to be once a year now. So it's still very interesting. So let's do the buy or fry for this. I think at this point for the beta, we'll start with the Frozen Survivor Cyclamen. I would wait on this. I would just wait till next Black Friday. The other thing now we know about Black Friday because of the most recent Black Friday, it's a whole year. So everything released for this year. So ever since last Black Friday, all the way until next Black Friday, these things won't be on sale right away. I can't say that. I'm not going to say 100%, but that's what we saw last Black Friday. I think that will be the same going forward. But so this to put this on to fry, that means like I would wait 2 Black Fridays when this is on sale. And I think by then these 4 betas might be released in a bundle of the 4 survivors. So this one unless you really love these 4 survivors and you really like the resin, I don't think the lantern's super interesting. I would just wait on it, maybe not even get it at all at this point, because I really think there's going to be a bundle with them coming. So that one's a fry for me. I would definitely get it on sale when you can, if you do want to wait. So seed pattern Ingama. I really like Ingama. I really like the animation they gave for Ingama. I really do. I like Ingama. Ingama is like the thing that we noticed and talked about it. It was on one of the sprues for Screaming Gods. So we had seen it for a while. We saw it on the sprue. We brought it up. People were talking about it. She's been asked about in the QAs of when's Ingama coming. So, cool that we've been waiting for. With this, I got it. So I bought it. I bought her already. I had high expectations for seed patterns. Which is why I wanted to do what I did at the front and say that I'm really glad that they tried to give as many, allow you to make as many good informed purchasing decisions as you possibly could for Ingama by showing the fact that seed patterns are going to require Berserker. So I bought Ingama. I really liked Ingama. I liked the sculpt, but in all reality, I would fry Ingama. I would just wait for her to be on sale. Especially if you're ARC only, there's no point in getting this for this price. It's not going to be as impactful as like Willow and stuff, or even the whip from Jackal. Those are much more impactful because they fill a role that we needed with Oxidized Ring Whip being gone. You don't really have very many whips, so we know Croc has a whip and stuff, but other monsters will have whips, but having one in your game all the time is what Jackal provides. And then the Novel Sword is huge. Willow is huge. Novel Sword's huge. It's such a cool thing. I think had Ingama come with novel grand specialization would have helped. I would love to see seed patterns do stuff like that. This feels like something you could have just done like a legendary character Ingama or something and given her tokens, because they made like a whole cool video. She's really cool. It's cool sculpt, giving her videos, giving her some giving her character card, give her some tokens. Something else besides, because I feel like the seed pattern boxes, we should get more from, expect something neat from them because they're just what they are. Maybe it's just the fact that it's a Zambado, we have so many of them, but again, I would fry Ingama, and hopefully that doesn't mean you have to wait too long. Maybe she'll show up even on this Black Friday on sale, but I have a feeling you'll have to wait 2 Black Fridays. I think on a Black Friday price point, she's great. That's what I would do. Even though I did get her, I got her expecting more from it because the last 2 were so great. So, and it's not that she's bad. It's just that the playing with arcs, you're not gonna vault this for Berserk, I don't think. And even then, it's a niche weapon. I'm not saying the weapons need to be super powerful. This is a pretty powerful one. It's pretty niche what you're gonna do with it. But niche weapons are great. I like niche weapons. I think niche weapons have a place, right? There's like the Impermanence Zambado. That's a niche weapon because you probably want to use that with Impermanence knowledge, but that's like gated to being Impermanist. I can't think of another niche weapon off the top of my head, but I know they exist. I know there's ones that you would only go for with certain builds, and then when they gel, they're in their environment, they gel. This one seems like you need kind of work for it. On top of working towards getting the seed pattern made, you then also need to work to get the weapon online. But once you do, I think the weapon's really good. So that nicheness of it, if you want to play with her, I think you will be rewarded. That's why I still say if you get her on sale, she's still worth it. So thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you in the next video.